Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the KeenGamer podcast. E3 is over, and we're here to talk about it. I'm your host, Tristan, and Anyka joins me once again as last week we gave our predictions, and we were right on some stuff, Anyka. A little bit.
Yeah, you were right on a lot of things, actually.
I'm just sad that we didn't get anything about Hellblade 2, though. I'm just a little
Yeah,
disappointed about
that's
that.
really concerning. I don't know why they didn't even mention it.
Yeah, it was weird, but I got Guardians right, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. But for this show, we'll be going all over our thoughts on E3, some of our highlights and favorite things we saw, and then we'll kind of discuss what was the best conference at E3. But Anyka, what were your thoughts on E3? It skipped a year and it came back this year. What do you think about it?
Honestly, it was quite enjoyable. I mean, there were like ups and downs, but most of all, I found a lot of games that seemed interesting and a lot that I didn't expect I would like. So overall, I had a good time. Everyone online seemed to have a good time as well.
I had mixed feelings. I thought the highs were incredibly high. I thought, even though
Mm-hmm.
it's not technically E3, I'm going to throw in Summer Game Fest in there too because it was just a part of the
Yeah.
weekend. And I thought that was great. I thought the Xbox conference was great. I thought Devolver Digital was really good, and Guerrilla Collective and some of the more indie stuff was really good. But man, some of the big publishers I just thought really dropped the ball. Like
Oh, yeah.
Capcom, I thought was pretty abysmal. And
Mm-hmm.
then Koch Media or Coke Media, however you're supposed to say it. Like I've heard it like 3 or 4 different ways, and I have zero idea how to say the company name.
I didn't even know they existed, and then I watched Kinda Funny's reactions, and it was terrible. They
Yeah.
had to leave. That's how bad it was.
Yeah, that was the lowest the low. But
Yeah.
overall though, like I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was just the main issue I had with it is just like companies that were there that clearly had nothing to really just show, but yet they
Yeah.
still put on a conference like Koch Media. Like I said, like for people who didn't watch that, it was just literally just interviews of developers. It was 24 minutes before you saw a trailer, and then 20 more minutes until you saw another game. The rest of it was just people talking, and it for games that they're like, these are the concepts we're developing, but it's like this game is in early development. It's like cool, so I'm not going to see this game for like 5 years, and you're telling me about it right now.
Yeah.
So stuff, there's a lot of stuff like that, or just telling and not showing. Like Capcom's like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
we're coming out with DLC for Resident Evil. Okay, that's it. You're just gonna say we're doing this and that's it. You're not gonna show us anything. You're not gonna tell us what it's gonna be about or anything. It's literally just like
Yeah.
show, don't tell. And it was just like that was
It is their first E3 as well. And for it to be their first E3, it's almost like, why were you even here if you didn't have something substantial to show?
yeah. It's just like companies should know how to put on a digital showcase at this point.
Yeah.
There and clearly some people got the memo, like Xbox, and I didn't watch the
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo one, but I've heard pretty positive things about Nintendo. I've seen a lot of people place
Mm-hmm.
that as like their top favorite. Um, so there's definitely been some good ones, but man, like I just don't get like how it goes wrong. It's like, come on, you should know. You see the people who do it right, just
Yeah.
just follow in their direction and you'll be fine. But apparently not everyone gets the memo on that.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah. But let's get into our highlights. I have quite a few games listed and stuff like that. But I'll let you take the floor. We can go back and forth and whatever, sort of like what we did
Mm-hmm.
last week. But yeah, what was a game that really caught your attention?
I mean, out of the gate, it was pretty obvious everyone was so hyped for Elden Ring. And even
Yes, I was so happy
beforehand,
you started with this.
yeah. Even before I knew of Elden Ring, but I wasn't sure about it. And then I kind of got reminded, oh, it's the guy who is like the heart of Studio Ghibli. And I'm like, oh. And then George R. R. Martin and the team. And then I saw the trailer and it kind of got me thinking this might be up my alley.
It's
So
not Studio
I
Ghibli,
mean,
by the way. He has the same
wait,
last
wait.
he has the same last name, but it's a different Miyazaki.
Wait, which Miyazaki? I've been thinking this whole time.
Really?
Wait,
No,
okay.
it's a
I
different
look.
Miyazaki.
Okay, which Miyazaki?
This
Who is
this
this
guy
guy?
this guy he's worked at From Software the whole like for like pretty much his
Oh,
whole
okay.
career. Hayataka Miyazaki is his name. At least I hope I'm pronouncing his first name
Okay.
correctly. But
I
yeah,
completely butchered that. I looked up Miyazaki and I'm like, that's the one. But you know
no,
what? It's fine. I still really like it.
yeah.
Like, I saw the trailer and I was like kind of shocked at how put together it was and that we
Yeah,
even got a release date.
that was the most shocking thing. Like I predicted last week. I'm like, we're gonna get like a look at it or something like that because it's been way too long, you know. But the
Yeah.
fact that they're like, oh yeah, here's release date, and it's not far off. It's in January, and I'm like, really, you're really putting this out there? And like, I'm all about it. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
huge From Software fan. I love Bloodborne, love the Dark Souls games, you know, so on and so forth. I love everything they've put out, you know, of like this whole genre, like this whole niche they found for themselves because they've been around for like the 90s, but it was only in the last like, you know, 10 plus years that they've really found this with Demon Souls and then the Dark Souls and all these other games that are kind of in this new genre of action RPGs. And now that they're going into a open world RPGs, you know, like it's completely open world and like, you know, it's all about like, you know, you can partner with your friends and go explore this vast area and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like a huge open world either, because they even said like, oh yeah, it's going to be about a
Mm-hmm.
30-hour game or whatever, and that's great. Like I can't stomach anymore like 60 plus hour open world games. I just can't do it anymore, you know. Um,
Yeah, I get it.
but
And they
yeah,
even said a lot of other things about it, and I'm trying to find some of the notes because they had a an interview with From Software's Hidetaki Miyazaki, not the other Miyazaki.
yeah.
And they said 6 major areas that function as distinct dungeons ruled by demigod characters. And they even said that it's not their biggest game, which I'm wondering what was their hugest game they worked on, like the world wise. But
I
it
would
seems like it's
argue
gonna.
potentially the first Dark Souls, because the first Dark Souls is
Okay.
pretty, it's pretty big. It's like and everything is interconnected, and that's what they're kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they're trying to go for with these 6 individual like dungeon areas.
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to be like all interconnected to some way, so you can go from one area to another, instead of like individualized levels and such.
Yeah.
But that's at least what I was getting from that interview. But
Yeah.
it sounds
I'm really
incredible
excited.
and it looks
Yeah.
amazing. I would it looks shockingly a lot like Dark Souls, and a lot of people are
Mm-hmm.
pointing that out. But like I think if you play enough of Dark Souls, you do see some differences, but there are some crossover. Even with Bloodborne, there's certain like visual things that they do that are similar, just to kind of point out like, hey, when you
Mm-hmm.
summon someone, this is like kind of the way they kind of look and stuff like that, you know. And some of the there's some other visual things they do, especially the lighting. They kind of cross over a lot, but I'm so impressed with the way it looks, and like, you know, mounts and like some of the other like movement related things, because their games are a little stiff, you know. And I think
Mm-hmm.
with Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, it was like, oh wow, you can grapple onto things, you can run around and stuff like that. It's a
Mm-hmm.
lot more fluid and a lot more like vertical and a lot more acrobatic. And it looks like this is kind of not going to that level, but still like a step above what they did with the Dark Souls games and Bloodborne and so on. But yeah, I couldn't believe it, and I loved in the presentation. Jeff Keighley himself was like, he was so excited. He's like, "Yes, we're finally going to show this." And then yeah, I'm like, man, what is he getting so excited for? Or then when the trailer started, I was like, "Oh my god, we're getting
Yeah. I
Elden
had a
Ring."
feeling he had something up his sleeve.
Yeah, I lost it. And you got to make those big splashes, and especially when it's like the end of the show, you got to make that big splash. And
Oh yeah.
it's something I saw a lot of these conferences just did not do, or they come right out of the gate with their biggest thing, like with Square
Mm-hmm.
Enix being like blowing the load on Guardians of the Galaxy, let's just talk about Guardians of the Galaxy now,
Yeah.
which is something I thought looked incredible. I'm a huge Marvel fan, and I thought a big issue I had with the Avengers game, and even Insomniac Spider-Man, where I thought Peter Parker, both the old version and the updated version, and in the faces of the Avengers, they just don't quite click with me, and I just think they look a little
Mm.
off. Like there's something I can't
Like the
tell you.
character look?
Yeah, like the design of the face, not the necessarily the suit or
Okay.
anything, but the face of the person behind the mask.
Mm.
I just I never really vibed with. I thought looked a little weird. Granted, there's some characters in Spider-Man I think look great. Like I love the way Miles Morales looks, and I like MJ and some of the other characters, but something about Peter Parker I never vibed with both faces. And then the Avengers, I just thought like most people, I thought they just looked off for something.
Mm.
But I really liked the way they look. And sure, Star Lord looks just like a generic white, blonde guy or whatever. But the rest of them look fantastic, especially like
Oh yeah.
Gamora. And I love the direction they're taking with it. And they really nailed the tone of Guardians of the Galaxy. Like that is like something I think it's so synonymous with like James Gunn's movies is the soundtrack, the visual look, the characters. Like there's so much character to that like franchise, and I thought they really nailed that while also making it kind of their own. And instead of relying on more like 70s and 60s music, I think they're going to go more for like an 80s vibe. And I think
Mm-hmm.
they're doing a great job of trying to set themselves apart because Spider-Man did a great job of setting itself apart from the MCU. Avengers did not. Like it was just this uncanny valley of this is
Yeah.
sort of like the MCU, but it's not, and it felt weird. But I think this really sets itself apart from James Gunn's work while also kind of paying homage to it in fitting for what fans would expect, like myself. But
Mm-hmm.
I
I
was blown away
yeah.
by it.
I see what you mean because I remember watching like the Avengers trailer, and a lot of the time the characters either looked slightly different from the first Marvel movie or like exactly the same. And I'm thinking like, is this the exact same Bruce Banner? He's wearing the same outfit. It's the same Black Widow looking, but a different face. It was odd. And the thing I was like shocked, not shocked, but like I was pleasantly surprised about when watching the Guardians reveal is how like unique these characters looked without being too different. These are clearly their own versions of the characters. And I really like the character design of them all.
Yeah, I
It
thought
was
the
really
character design
impressive.
was fantastic. And the thing I was wondering, and I even spoke about this last time, and I was very curious to see how do you make this work and not make it Avengers? Because I'm like, please don't be like Avengers. Please be like a single player story driven game. Thankfully, it is. It's going in the path of Spider-Man. But how do you make it like a team up, like an ensemble cast of characters in a single player game? And they're like, oh, you're playing a Star Lord and that's it. And then you can kind of
That's really
command.
shocking to me. I kind of wish there were some levels you get to choose, but still get to like order around the rest of your crew. But
Yeah.
I guess we're just making decisions as Star Lord, and I'm kind of glad they're sticking to one thing at least.
Yeah, I think it could get a little messy if you're just trying to branch out. And I think it's just try and keep it simple. And I think the way they're doing that but making the chemistry with the characters really works. I think the writing and acting from what we've seen really works. And I think also the fact that you can command them in battle, like sort of like
Mm-hmm.
in God of War where you do with Atreus. I thought that was a really great way to do it. And I was
And this
also really,
seems more complex too. Like the way you can tell Gamora to do four different moves
yeah.
and probably to unlock all these different things. And it looked very chaotic, but
Yeah. And there's
mm,
even like a special move too, and like there's like it looks like it's pretty dense with like the different mechanics and
mm-hmm,
things like that. But it also looked pretty intuitive also.
mm-hmm.
I was also very surprised with the way you could make dialogue choices and be like, because
Oh yeah.
the trailer, the demo we saw, it was like, hey, we're gonna sell like Groot or Rocket essentially to these people, and that's gonna be our way to get into this place that we're trying to get into or whatever, and kind of they're scheming and whatnot, and like, well, what everyone has their bit, and then they look to you and go, what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
And as Star Lord, you can decide, oh, we're going to sell Groot or we're going to sell Rocket. But then what was even cooler is later down the road, it was you could change your mind. You can go,
Mm-hmm.
we're sticking to this, or we're going to actually, let's sell Groot, let's sell him instead. And that's what they did. And it was super cool. I hope that they are meaningful choices you can make, because I think games that do give you choices kind of make a kind of a false sense of
Mm-hmm.
choice, and then when you get to the end of the game, you're like, actually a lot of my choices did not have much weight, and it kind of was a letdown, you know.
Telltale
Um,
games.
yeah,
But
seriously. That's a good example of a of
yeah.
games that are like that. And there's just a lot of RPGs that I feel like that are like that too. Like Cyberpunk 2077 had that issue also of a
Mhm.
false sense of it, and then there was no real meaningful choices. Um,
I'm
but
hoping
yeah,
in this one at least, like, because they gave you a second chance to stop yourself. And I remember watching it and being like, oh, well, I originally thought I would choose Rocket because he looked menacing. But now I'm thinking the tall, big, scary Groot will be better. So, like, I would benefit from that. And I hope that in the story, that the story drastically changes depending on who you choose to go in. Maybe one of the choices doesn't actually end up going well and chaos ensues, but maybe one of the other choices actually is goes to your benefit and the plan works. But I guess we won't know until we actually see the game.
yeah, I really hope that, like, let's say this game, like this game is shockingly come like they this is their world premiere being like, hey, this game, it's been rumored, we are making it, it is official, and here's a deep dive look at it. And you know what? It's coming out in October. That is shocking that
Yeah,
it
I
got release
forgot it
date
was so close.
that close. Like it pulled an Elden Ring, but even more so by being like, you know what, we're real and we're coming out like in just a couple months. But so we'll know in just like a few months. But I'm curious, like let's say you and I are both playing it at the same time. And I'm like, oh, we're at the same part. What choice did you make? And we made different choices. And then as we're talking about our outcomes, we realize, oh wait, it wasn't that much of a difference, you know. So I hope there's significant difference that
Hmm.
entices you to want to replay the game and do different choices and see different outcomes. I hope it's real. It That's probably the biggest worry I have is how
Hmm.
is the choices going to be meaningful? How are they going to actually impact the game, change the story, change outcomes? Is it going to make my experience different from my friends? If it does, then that'll be awesome, and I might actually, and the game's fun enough, I might replay it, you know, and I hope that's what I can get out of that game.
Yeah, did they even say in the preview or whatever, like your choices heavily matter? I don't remember if they
I
really
don't
focus on
remember. I don't
that.
know what their wording was. I know they just said like, "Hey, you have choices, and it'll make a difference."
Hmm.
And
Okay.
then they showcased that, which was nice that they actually showed that. But I don't know how much weight there really is to that, and or even how often these are. It looked based on that demo or preview, whatever you want to call it. It was about I think there was about three choices you got to make because it was do you sell Groot or Rocket? Then they need to get over a gap, and they're like, and there was two choices, and Drax was going to throw Rocket across there, and you can encourage him to do it, or you could tell him knock it off or whatever, and he encouraged him, which was awesome. But then there was the choice of, you know what, I want to revert it back, and we're going to sell Groot instead of Rocket, or we can stick to the original plan. And it seemed like the characters really react to that. Like they did a telltale thing where when you encouraged Drax to throw him,
Hmm.
and it even said that Rocket was pissed off at you, you know, and I think that
Yeah.
was, it's very much like a straight up from Telltale games, but like I really liked that, and I hope at very least you can change your relationships with characters, and I think outside of just the grand story, I hope the little finer things change too,
Hmm.
of like your relationships and stuff like that. I don't know how in depth it's gonna get. You never know with that type of
We can
thing.
only hope by October they'll have it put together.
Yeah, absolutely. But what's your next game that you wanna talk about that you're excited about?
One that like came out of nowhere because surprisingly, I really enjoyed the Bethesda Xbox showcase over anything else. Like that seemed to get me, even though I don't even have an Xbox, and that worries me. I might have to change that in like the future. But I really liked Redfall. That came out of nowhere,
Yes.
and I was like, how are they making Deathloop and also this at the same time? They are working hard, and I thought it looked really cool, and I thought it was unique still. And did they say that was exclusive? Because it's Arcane, but I know Deathloop
I'll
will
look it up
be.
while you're talking. I
Yeah,
don't I because I
we didn't see any gameplay, but other than
yes, it
that, I
is.
think the
It is an
premise just
exclusive.
intrigued. All right. Well, there's there's one other reason why I should get Game Pass sometime in the future, even without a gaming PC. But even the fact that it did kind of sway me, I feel like means something.
I'm a huge fan of Arcane. I think they're one of the most talented studios out there. I never played Dishonored 2, and I played only like a chunk of Dishonored 1, but I thought it was very impressive. And I've seen Dishonored 2, and I think it's really great. I their Prey reboot is tremendous, and it has arguably one of the greatest openings in video game history. It's spectacular. And I'm super hyped for Deathloop. They're just a super talented studio that make really stylish action games, and I think they have a really unique brand. While there's still like very familiar elements from other games in them, but they just feel like they have their own personality. And that's my biggest thing about studios is the games they make are identifiable. Of yes, this is definitely an Arcane game, or this is definitely a whatever other studio, And I was so like blown away because I thought. Yeah, like you said, all I was thinking about was Deathloop. When it came to Arcane, I assumed maybe they have a small team working on something, but we won't hear about that for 3, 4, 5 years, whatever down the road. But it's like, no, we're coming out with this game and it's gonna be an Xbox exclusive. And here's a it was like a 4.5 minute like trailer. It was pretty lengthy, and it looked awesome. It very much even though it was a cinematic trailer. There's a way to do cinematic trailers to make it work, because I think there is a bit of a stigma towards them and being like, oh yeah, we didn't get to see anything about the game. It was just, the cinematic thing or whatever.
The cinematic definitely seemed like it showed gameplay without showing gameplay,
Yeah, like the idea of the gameplay, like I walked away from that knowing, oh, this is like a Left 4 Dead vampire game, essentially, and the characters have different powers and abilities and stuff like that. Like it very much told you this is what the game's going to be without showing you what the game is going to be in a very stylish, interesting way. And also just the art style of it was gorgeous, and the use of color, like it just like that game is going to look amazing. And I think their games are always look amazing. They're always super stylish and look fantastic. And it was shocking. Like this was one of the biggest surprises for me too, because it was just like not like I had no idea that they would.
It came out of left field, and they when they were saying, "Oh, we've got one more thing," a part of me was like, "They're not gonna show like Fable or Elder Scrolls 6. I can't put my hopes too high." And then they said Arcane is working on a game. I was like, "What? What do you mean? Like, what are they gonna show?"
Yeah, like when they were like one more thing, and usually one more thing means here's something really big that you're kind of expecting, like Elden Ring, it's like here's something huge, but it's something you kind of are hoping for, something about. But showing a brand new IP as your final big splash, was really impressive, and it was really left field, like you said, but it was awesome. Like it caught so much attention. That was like, I think one of the games I saw people talking about most on social media. And yeah, I thought it was awesome. I love Left 4 Dead, and I love Arcane. So I am absolutely going to get this game. And like, it is 27 out of 30 games that Xbox showed were kind of come to Game Pass. And I'm like, cool, I have Game Pass and I have a gaming PC. I'm going to be playing like most of these games on Game Pass, and it's awesome. And even the ones I'm not excited for, like Stalker 2, I don't really care about. Like, it looks cool, but I'm like not super hyped about it. I don't know what it is. It's not quite grabbing me. I'll play it though, because I'm like, cool, I get it for free. I'll just download it.
Yep, that's the good thing about Game Pass.
I'll install. Yep. Yeah, it's awesome. I love that. And man, Redfall just looks incredible. Yeah, you're totally right on that. And I'm glad, man, we have so many of the same games that you've called out Elden Ring and you called out Redfall. I'm like, all right.
Did you call out Starfield? Was that something you're into?
Oh yeah. Let's get to Starfield, because that was on my list.
Okay,
actually.
good.
I was trying to think of what game I wanted to talk about next, but yeah, I think Starfield's a great one, because we're gonna beat this to death, but Xbox had a great showcase, and we're gonna keep talking about that through this whole podcast.
Oh yeah.
But the fact that Starfield,
I think I rated that number 1.
Yeah, it's like that
I rated the Xbox showcase number 1, and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. But I could not believe that Starfield was their opener. And actually, it got leaked actually moments
Mm-hmm.
before because Washington Post posted the trailer,
Oh,
which had the release date in within the trailer, and I don't know how that went through, or whatever. But I don't get it. That was a weird
I don't
call
know how
thing.
that works, but okay.
Yeah, but man, it even though it's just a cinematic and it didn't quite hit like the Redfall trailer where you definitely like I think you got more of a sense of what the game is from
Mhm.
Redfall than Starfield. But if you've played a Bethesda RPG, then you kind of have some idea of what it's going to be like, you know. But it's great that we finally got something about this. It's a ways away. It's over a year away. It's going to be November 11th, 2022. But I'm stoked. But I like Bethesda's RPGs. Sure, have they been on a roll lately? No, they have not. Fallout 76, not a good game. It's very empty, and I even with the updates,
Mhm.
it's just not quite as an impactful experience as I want from a Fallout game. I liked Fallout 4, but there was just some things about it, some decisions with it I wasn't crazy about. But I think this could be their comeback, being like, you
Mhm.
guys love Bethesda, okay? Just let us remind you that you love Bethesda and why we are who we are because we are a great studio. Like they really are a great studio. They just, they kind of had a little rough patch. They've been publishing great stuff, but they haven't been developing great stuff. But now
Yeah.
this is their chance to be like, hey, we're back. This is who we are, and I'm super curious to see what it's going to look like, in terms of the
Mhm.
actual gameplay. But
And the engine as well, because a problem with their older games, they kept the same engine from like Skyrim 2011 to Fallout 76. And you can tell it's been dated. So I really hope this game looks good. And the problem I have though with like big games like this, like Elden Ring and Starfield, is that I'm scared for them that our expectations are going to be so high that when it comes out, and even if it's just slightly less than what we think, it's going to disappoint people. So I'm just being like, oh, this is going to be crap, just so I'll
yeah.
be like pleasantly surprised when it's not.
It's going to be terrible, but deep inside, please be good.
Yeah.
For Elden Ring, I'm not worried about at all, just because From Software has proven themselves to put out
Yeah.
banger after banger. Bethesda, because they hit this rut, it does make me a little bit worried. I can't wait to be able to see gameplay. I hope we see that sooner rather than later.
Hmm.
Even though I do think we're gonna see it later, I'd be shocked if we see anything about that game for the rest of the year. But
Yeah.
I would love to see just what it's actually gonna look like in game. Like you said, man, their engine is just so out of date. Like
Hmm.
at when they showed some new stuff about Fallout 76. Of course they were going to. I think everyone expected that. But when that footage started, and I was like, ooh, I remember this
Oh
looking
yeah.
better. But it's like there
Hmm.
was some parts of it that looked really good, in the right lighting and the right shot. But there was some parts I was like, ooh, that's rough. That is really rough. And
Yeah.
I know this is going to be like an updated engine and whatnot and stuff
Yeah,
like
it
that.
says
So
next gen creation engine too. So I'm just thank God.
finally, to be
No,
honest, they should have
finally.
done that with Fallout 4, which at the
Yep.
time looked really good, but it could have looked way better because it was just like you're still using the same thing. Come on, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm super interested in it, and I thought that was a great way to start the conference, though. It's like, hey, let's get Todd Howard out here and let's show everyone Starfield. I thought that was a
Hmm.
great move to show, hey, Xbox and Bethesda, we've acquired them. This is what it's going to look like moving forward of this
Yeah.
relationship. And I thought they did a great job of giving people expectations of this is what to expect. And yes, Starfield's an exclusive, or hey, this game it's not exclusive, but hey, it's going to be on Game Pass. Stuff like that. I thought it was a great way to really showcase this is what it means because we've talked about it on the podcast before of like what does this actually look like of Bethesda
Hmm.
being owned by Microsoft, by Xbox, and we have a way better understanding now. And I thought that was a great job that they did of this is what you should expect.
Yeah, they definitely know what they're doing. And I feel like now looking at Sony PlayStation compared to Microsoft. They're pretty level now with this generation. I was worried with Xbox, but this showcase makes me more confident in their future.
Oh yeah, there's so many games, and most of these games I got from their conference, that I was looking forward to.
Hmm.
Another one I want to shout out though is that I was so surprised. I had zero
Hmm.
idea they were going to show this. I thought because the studio has its hands full, they weren't going to do anything like this. But Outer Worlds 2, the teaser for that,
Yeah.
I was blown away. Absolutely, like I couldn't believe that we are getting an obviously we're gonna get an Outer Worlds 2 because it was so successful, such a great game. I loved it, but at the same time, it was like I just because they have Avowed, they're working on Avowed, and then they have that Grounded game or whatever it's called.
Hmm.
And so it's just like, okay, you guys have your hands full, so we're probably not going to see an Outer Worlds 2 for quite a while. And it's like, no, here's a trailer for it, and same thing with Redfall. It really sets the tone, and I think that was a big part of Outer Worlds 2. It kind of had like Fallout has like a sense of humor to it and stuff like that, and they kind of were able to do something similar to that, but also different enough, to kind of give it its own personality and own aesthetic. And I felt like it kind of going with that same vibe that it had in the first game was awesome. And yeah, I was blown away. This is like I've before recording the podcast, I was thinking, man, there weren't a whole lot of surprises at E3, but now I'm more thinking about it, there's a good
Yeah.
bit, there's a good bit of surprises that
There was just so
happened.
many surprises that you forget all of the surprises that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you play Outer Worlds?
I didn't, but I like look at it and I'm now thinking that I should
Yeah.
because I've never done like a Fallout, but like it definitely seems like I would be interested in it. And I'm like, I was also surprised that they were already coming out with the sequel or even talking about it. But
Yeah.
I'm just like, good for you.
Yeah,
You
it's
you
a
take it.
really accessible RPG, and I say that as it's very linear. Like the maps in it are not open world. It's
Mm,
open enough where it kind of guides you to some areas, and hey, there's a little corner here. It's an optional thing and stuff like that. But overall, it's pretty linear, and it's a pretty short 20 to 30 hour experience. It's a great way to experience an RPG in a very tight, concise manner. But it has very meaningful, progression, very meaningful choices you get to make. The combat's great. It's probably the best Fallout game that's not a Fallout game.
hmm.
Honestly, it was really good. And I know Ben, he talks every time he's on the podcast. I feel like he talks about Outer Worlds, and he's replayed that game like a million times. And
Oh,
so
I guess I better check for a sale then.
oh yeah, it's fantastic. And I was able to play it for free because of Game Pass. So
Yeah.
I had a even more incentive to play it, and I really liked it. Um, but what's another game that's on your list that you're checking out?
Plague Tale. I was not expecting Plague Tale to show up, and I think that was again in the Xbox conference. And
It
I
was.
forget the next name for it. It was not Plague Tale Innocence, Plague Tale something.
I'll look it
But
up.
that was the one game I was so hyped because I don't think it's an exclusive, and I
A Plague
really thought it
Tale
was
Innocence is what it's
underrated.
called.
I thought that was the first one. What's the second? A Plague
Wait,
Tale 2.
Plague Tale 2. Wait, no,
It
Innocence
was
was the
definitely
Requiem.
Requiem.
Requiem is the new
Requiem.
one. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Because, like, I knew with the Plague Tale blank, they want to make more Plague Tales. And I just did not expect it this soon. And think it's criminally underrated. Like, not enough people talk about it. And I really enjoyed it and how unique it was. And this is just like, oh, it's going to be good.
We've had a nice time on this podcast so far, and Annika, I think that comes to an end as I have a hot take. I did not like A Plague Tale. I did not like it.
Why?
Okay, so first of all, the kid that you have to escort through the whole game, I thought was a pain in the
Yeah.
ass. I hated that. I hated that.
Okay, that's fair.
And I thought I liked the world and stuff like that. It was just hard to care about the characters, and like I wasn't too crazy about the gameplay. And then actually I never beat it because it broke on me. Like it had a game breaking bug,
Oh
and like
my
I had
god.
to go through I met some character, and like we were going through like a camp full of enemies and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and then sneaking around, and then she's like, hey, let's go through this tent, and I couldn't go through the tent, and I was like,
Oh no.
and then I was like, well, that's the end of this game,
Yeah.
and so I never beat it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard such great things about the game, and it just did not click with me. It was one of those few
I see
times
that.
where I'm like, man, I don't know, I did not understand the hype behind it and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's because the kid ran away sometimes, and then you get mad at the kid, and you're like, God damn it, you gotta stop running away, Hugo. But I don't know. I think I just didn't. I didn't hate any moment of it, and I liked the puzzles, and I wasn't uh bothered by how it wasn't so actiony. I kind of liked that whenever you're fighting someone, you're just a young girl, and it's like, how do you figure this out? And I also thought what was impressive was how good the frame rate stayed, even though there were like millions of rats on the screen.
Yeah, I was
And
that was pretty impressive, and
yeah,
yeah, and there were some great ideas to it, and there's a lot of things like
hmm
it's a game I can appreciate, even though I don't like,
yeah,
um, and I think I was surprised of it getting a sequel. Like I knew it was very beloved, I just didn't know if it performed well enough to actually
hmm
get the sequel. You can have a million people say they love the game, but it's like how much money did you really make? And
yeah,
is someone gonna fund this game and whatnot? But I thought it was like really impressive, and I thought it was really surprising that it was getting a sequel. I didn't
hmm
expect to even see anything about the
oh yeah.
sequel, and yeah, so really cool for people like you who liked that first game and are getting that. So hopefully it comes out sooner rather than later, and people can get their hands on it.
Another very surprising thing was Avatar. Not the Avatar we all want, which I don't know if you're an Avatar Last Airbender fan, but I have been
It's
for the
all right.
past year.
I liked it. I
Okay.
didn't love it, but it's pretty good.
Yeah. So when I saw Avatar, I was like, this seems like 10 years too late. But I guess with people talking about the sequel coming out, like the movie for the blue people, it kind of the audience is building. But I'm not sure how to feel because I don't know if there was much gameplay. It was more visually impressive.
Hmm.
But I was like, oh, this is very surprising that they are even making an Avatar game.
Yeah, it was definitely surprising, and I never saw the movie. But I think one regarding the movies, they're planning for like 4 sequels, and it's like you're
Yeah.
over a decade too late. It's just like I think they will perform well because Avatar is like one of the highest grossing movies. It did so
Yeah.
well and stuff like that. But and it's James Cameron, he always makes bank, but like I just can't see the appeal of it. And then it's like, hey, here's this game, and it's like, why are we doing this? Just like, why
Yeah.
are we doing it? Like,
But maybe it's their own spin on it, and I hope who I forget, was it at the Ubisoft
yeah, it
or
was Ubisoft, yeah.
okay. So I mean Ubisoft is good at what they do most of the time. And so they seem to be kind of want to do their own thing apart from the movies. So it's like if it's a cool open world, okay. It's more like a
Yeah, I don't know.
I
I have
know.
zero expectations for it whatsoever, and I was kind of like eye rolling, being like, really, we're coming out with an Avatar game, and I
Yeah.
saw that same joke about like this is not the Avatar game we wanted. I
Yeah.
saw a lot of responses to that, but it was definitely a pretty cinematic. I'll give them that, but yeah,
Yep.
I was just like not feeling it at all. Definitely, it was a shock to see though. Regardless, a game I want to talk about that caught me by surprise, and this is definitely now we're going to go more indie here. But Fire Girl, did you see that game? It's
No.
a like kind of like a
Fire
retro
Girl.
styled indie game where you're this woman who's a firefighter, and you're gonna go. It's like a platformer action game. It's like what they call a. It was like a hack and splash is what they called it, and you're just like
Oh.
cutting up debris to go rescue people and stuff like that. Super stylish, incredibly pretty with great lighting and color, and it just had a super cool style to it. It was like very much like the
Oh, I
retro
see.
style, but some things are a little bit higher like res
Yeah.
and higher rendered, while some are more like pixelated pixel art stuff. And like
Mm-hmm.
it was a great blend of that, and like it just looks gorgeous. And like that was a game that really caught
Mm-hmm.
me off guard, and because I know you like your indies and stuff like that too. And it's like if you need like like a little indie game to kind of.
I don't play indies as much as you really think, but
Oh,
now
really?
that I want to. Some
Yeah.
of them, it's like, is this worth my time? I don't know if I'd be into this.
Yeah.
But another one that was pixelated was called Replaced. That was the one at the Xbox
Yes.
that looked really cool. Like I just visually, I love pixel art, but also like super HD looking.
Yeah.
It was really intriguing.
Yeah, that game, like that is like one of the most talked about games. Like especially when it comes to like the indie games, that is the most talked about game. Like I just people exploded over that game, and I think it looks awesome. Like it's so
Hmm.
beautiful. Like like sure, the pixel art thing is like such a trend now. Like everyone's doing it, but there's
There's
people.
a way to do it.
There's a way to do it, yeah. And there's games I've seen that do it, and there's even games that are shown at the C3 that like do the pixel art thing, and I'm just not vibing with it, you know. But games like
Hmm.
Fire Girl and Replaced, I was like, oh, I'm vibing with this. Like they're just kind of like it feels like they have their own stamp on it, you know, of this style, and like there's something different that they're doing to at least make it more identifiable in the flood of like pixel art games that are coming out like crazy, you know. Yeah, that's another one. I didn't have them on my list. Not that I wasn't excited for it, but
Hmm.
I just already had enough games to
And I
talk
think it's
about.
an Xbox exclusive, so I just listed it as it looks cool, but I don't. I'm not going to even have access to it unless I pay much
Is
more
that
money.
an
But
exclusive? Uh, I have no idea if that's going to be an
huh.
exclusive or not. Actually,
Well, it at least just caught my eye. That's what I'll
yeah.
say. And I'll say I don't have any other games that I like was anticipating besides that came out in the Nintendo conference because the PC Gamer Show felt like it was just kind of boring. Didn't
It
really
was
care about
boring.
it.
As a PC gamer, I could tell you it was not
Yeah.
good.
Square Enix, just what I expected besides like Guardians. Guardians was all that like I was like
Yeah, and
actually
they should have
happy to
saved that for the
watch.
end. They shouldn't have gone for that at the very
Yeah.
beginning, honestly, because then
And then Capcom didn't even have to be there. What was the point?
what was the point? Yeah, them and Koch Media should just not have showed up at all.
No.
So okay, so you don't have really anything. I have a couple more that we can get
Okay, you go.
into. So I have Severed Steel. Do you see that game?
No,
It's a
Severed
first
Steel.
person shooter. It's very similar to Super Hot, except I think a little bit more acrobatic and the style looks a
Oh.
little bit different. But a lot like very like focused on destruction, like destructible environments and very stylized combat and art
Mm-hmm.
style. It looks really cool. I've been looking forward to this game for a while. Actually, it's been on my wish list for on Steam for quite a while, and they just showed like a little gameplay footage of it and stuff like that. Sadly, no release date yet. I was kind of bummed about it, but I love Super Hot. Except I think it gets a little stale, and this looks a lot
Mm-hmm.
more engaging and like
Looks a lot more visually encapturing
yeah,
than Super Hot.
yeah, and I like Super Hot style, but it's like after playing like however many levels of Super Hot, and then it's just like
Mm-hmm.
everything kind of blends, you know.
Yeah.
But I thought this looks really cool. You know, just like seeing him like jump off a wall and do a backflip and like shoot someone and stuff like that. It just looks like there's going to be a game where people are just going to be doing crazy stuff in that game. I can't wait to see like the videos on YouTube that are going to pop up of people doing ridiculous tricks and whatnot, and it looked super cool. Actually, I'm super excited about that game. Um, the other one I was going to talk about though is even though I think we've seen too many things on this game, I'm glad we finally got a release date for 12 minutes. That's another
Yeah.
game I've been really looking forward to. Great cast of James McAvoy, Willem Dafoe, and Daisy Ridley.
Daisy Ridley, yeah.
Yeah, I think it looks super unique. It's funny that we're getting all these time loop games. We have Deathloop in 12
Yeah.
minutes, and I swear there's something else out there that's kind of a similar thing. I feel like I could be wrong, but I think it looks super unique, and I'm shocked that such an like a small indie game is getting such a huge cast. And even though
Oh
like
yeah.
we haven't really seen like actual gameplay, at least not that I've seen. I don't know if there is a gameplay out there, but I think it's going to be a game where you don't want that. Actually, I think it's going to be a game where it's like we gave you the concept and this, so like this is what you can expect. And I'm super stoked for the story they're going to tell and like how that's going to like what you're going to do and like what to expect from that game. And I think it looks super unique and a really interesting game with a cool art style to it and a cool perspective
Mm-hmm.
of it being kind of top down. You see overhead of this little apartment. I don't know that the whole game is going to take place in that one apartment, but I like those like very narrow games where it's like this is the premise and we're just gonna go through this tight narrow hallway and this is this is the experience. It's not some big
Mm-hmm.
giant thing or whatever. And I love
But it
those.
seems like you can make different choices or something, because it
Yeah, it
seems
seems
like
like
what you do in
choices.
this tiny apartment will matter. Maybe only it's a 12-minute game, but you could make so many different scenarios within those 12 minutes.
Yeah, I wonder if it really is gonna be like a 12-minute, like each session's 12 minutes. I wonder what the deal
Yeah.
is with that. Like, I wonder if it's gonna be like Outer Wilds where it's like you have 20 minutes and then it
Yeah.
resets you
Hmm.
and then you just keep kind of doing things until you can gain more progress. Or like the Stanley Parable, I think it's also like where you just go through essentially session after session, but things are changing and kind of evolving as you play through, and then there's like a definitive ending, or if there's
Well,
going to
I
be
think it's
multiple
releasing in
endings.
August, so I
Yeah,
see
August
very
19th.
soon.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm super hyped about that. Um, Going away from indies, though, just real quick, Battlefield 2042 blew my mind. The gameplay of that looked ridiculous. I don't know if like,
It
are
did
you
look very crazy. I didn't know anything about like Battlefield because I think of like Call of Duty and all those stuff in one thing in my head, and I'm like,
Yeah,
they're all
yeah.
the same. And then I told my boyfriend about it, and he's like, no, 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 this is like a place where like there's 100 people online or something in one big battle. I was like, oh, that seems like a lot to handle for like a computer or a console. And then I saw the trailer and I was like, oh my God, there's so many things happening at once. There's a tornado. So I think it was very impressive. I don't know if I'll play it, but it definitely like it makes me intrigued by it, by how I don't know, big it is.
Yeah,
Seems bigger than we think.
it's those games are always massive, and the fact that they're ditching the campaign, which I've seen people divided on. I don't know
Mm,
why people are divided on. Battlefield campaigns are always bad. They're always not
yeah.
good. I feel like those types of games, like Call of Duty and all that stuff. Like I just feel like I just never liked their campaigns, but I love Battlefield multiplayer. I kind of fell off. I played like a few minutes of the last one, Battlefield 5, and then I played a good bit of Battlefield 1. I didn't love it, but I played enough of it to enjoy it. And then I played just a ridiculous amount of Battlefield 4, Battlefield 3, Bad Company 2. I just like, I think they do a better job with the more modern setting
Mm,
games. So that going like a little bit distant in the future, I think it's going to be a great way to kind of go back to form for them. And because Battlefield 5, I don't know why people didn't like it, but it just didn't click with people. I think people are maybe tired of the World War setting.
mm-hmm,
I think Battlefield 1, people are like, okay, that was cool, but can we go back to a modern setting? And they're like, no, we're not doing that. And you go, oh, okay, then. But
mm-hmm.
I think this is a true return to form, but also going a step up with the destruction, the dynamic weather. I don't know too much of what we saw, just some destruction and stuff like that, but I didn't feel like they showed like exactly what it's going to look like. I feel like they
Mm-hmm.
were showing a lot of other elements. So I'm curious to see like how the destruction has evolved, but I think it looks absolutely stellar. And just like I love
Mm.
Battlefield for its chaos. Like you said, there's so much stuff going on, and that's why I like it. That's why I like it more than Call of Duty, just because I don't know. It's something about it is different. It's a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a sandbox experience than like a competitive one, and I really like that. That idea of taking like a competitive shooter, but kind of having sandbox elements to it. And the stuff that you see, like people just like will put C4 on a vehicle, then drive it into a building and blow up, and the whole building blows up and stuff like that. Is just like
Yeah, I really like
I love
seeing
that.
that huge rocket ship go into the air. Like, what do you have to do? I don't know what you're doing, but I just want to see your character like trying to climb up it. I don't know.
So there's a thing they introduced in Battlefield 4, I think it was called Levolutions, and it's basically a
Okay.
single thing that dramatically changes the map. essentially that's the idea. So in Battlefield 4, the only one that I can remember is there was a map where it's just like a city and stuff like that, and you're battling it out and stuff like that. And there's a gigantic skyscraper. You can take an elevator that takes you all the way to the roof, but there's a way to blow up the building and it comes crashing down. And so then the smoke of the building falling covers the whole map. So everything's kind of harder to see. And it's just a giant pile of rubble. And like it dramatically changes the feel of the whole map. And that's kind of the idea of it. So I assume the rocket shooting up is going to be like a levolution, and somehow the rocket going up is going to change things or whatever, or who knows what they're going to do.
That's very unique. It seems like they know what they're doing with 2042.
Yeah, 2042.
Yeah. Seems cool.
I'm super hyped for that. And like you said, though, I'm surprised at how it's gonna run, because it's like not only do they have like this crazy weather, tornadoes, and destruction alone is really hard to do because it takes so much power to do it. But then they're upping, because the highest player mode in previous Battlefield games was like 64 players or something like that. But now they're going to 128, and it's just like 128 players battling it out,
with different internet connections.
Yeah, it's just like it's gonna be wild, and I cannot.
I hope it works.
Yeah, seriously. Well, you'll get my thoughts about it whenever that game, when it comes out later this fall, and I'll definitely be playing. I'm so hyped for that. I want to talk about one last game though, Atomic Heart. It's been a first-person shooter that I've been literally looking at for a while now. It looks really, really weird, kind of giving me some BioShock vibes, but also kind of like giving me the humor of like a Fallout or something like that. It looks super bizarre and really, really cool. I've been really looking forward to this for a while. It kind of popped on my radar a while back, and I've had it on my Steam wish list for a while. But like Severed Steel, no release date or anything like that, which kind of sucks. But I thought it looked super cool. Did you see anything about that game?
I remember hearing the name, and now I'm looking at the images. I don't really remember the actual trailer. I'm gonna have to look back at it, but it's definitely giving me like Fallout vibes. There's a lot of cool like machinery, and then you've got the what are these robots or
there's
infected?
all kinds of weird
I can't
stuff.
tell.
Yeah, and
I just like anything that takes a unique take.
Yeah, it definitely has like it looks like it has its like own style, an own personality. Also, it'll be day one on Game Pass, so another reason to get Game Pass, Anyka.
Damn.
I know.
Okay.
Hey, you'll make your money back instantly with all the games you're going to be downloading.
That's what I'm saying, but I don't have a gaming PC. And I'm thinking, are you allowed to get like an old Xbox One? And then are you allowed to play like the newer games, or do they not allow that?
So
do you think
that's Xbox's whole thing. They're like, play your games the way you want, unless you own a PlayStation or Nintendo. That's the thing they never say. But basically the idea is these games, you can play it on Xbox One, Xbox Series S, X, Xbox One S, Xbox One X, all the X's essentially, or PC. As long as if you have Game Pass, you can play it. I know they do make it. I don't know all the tech behind it of like how they make it for like an Xbox One, Series X game work for Xbox One, but they do have that capability. And I think they said the pure quote unquote next gen games, which should be called current gen, but the Xbox Series X games and Xbox Series S games that are specifically made for those they're gonna be able to be played on earlier Xboxes, the Xbox One series, Xbox Ones and stuff like that. You can play those through cloud. Actually, that's how they're gonna do it. Because obviously those games are far above the hardware, but they're gonna use cloud gaming to make it work. So
that makes me wonder, should I just get a cheap Xbox One and then be sad that it looks kind of crummy, or maybe it doesn't play as well as it would because it's on cloud?
I would say try and find the best deal you can for an Xbox One S or an Xbox One X. I would say the base Xbox One, you're probably going to have some issues with, but I would say try and go for the One S or the One X if you can find like a good deal for it. And then do that, and sure, later down the line, get a gaming PC, get a Series S or a Series X. Actually, you could always get in a Series S because it's a pretty good deal on that. It's not that
Oh
expensive and
yeah,
stuff like that.
digital.
Yeah, and it's all
That'll be
digital.
way in the future. I just got my PS5 and my bank
Yeah,
account is crying because of it. So
yeah, for
wait a
sure.
little bit.
But yeah, and who knows what because it's so hard to get a Series S or X, But I think those
Hmm.
should be your options. I think your priority should be a Series S or get a 1X or a 1S if all else
Yeah, that
fails.
makes
But
sense.
again, later down the line, you can play this game. These games will be on your backlog. But hey, once you get Game Pass, which is a
Yeah.
great deal, and then you get your Xbox, whatever Xbox you decide on, it'll be totally worth it.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be awesome, and I can't wait for you to get it because man, I can't believe Xbox is finally getting games. Like that was the big
Oh
criticism.
yeah.
They were kind of reviving themselves with Game Pass and the service stuff, and everyone's like, cool, but what can we actually play? And they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
here's a bunch of games, and it's like awesome. This is such a great incentive to get Game Pass or get an Xbox or get into gaming PCs so you can get Game Pass for that. Um, that's why it is the best conference. It's like they showed
Hmm.
games, they didn't talk too long. Most games didn't, you know, weren't staying over their welcome. My only criticism, and this goes for like a lot of the conferences, is we saw games that we didn't need to see again. Like games that we were
Yeah.
like, okay, Ubisoft, you showed us Far Cry 6, but you're showing us it again at another conference from someone else's conference, from Xbox's conference. Really? Why are you showing us Far Cry 6 again? Like I've just seen so much of that game. I don't need anything else. I just don't. I'll probably play it. I don't know. Because there's so many games and my
Hmm.
bank account's probably going to be crying from getting tattoos and getting video games and stuff like that throughout the year. But like showing us that or showing us more Back for Blood. I'm already sold on Back for Blood. I'm super stoked that game. They announced it's gonna be for Game Pass. That's great. But other than that, I don't need to see more of that game.
Hmm.
But for the most part, it's like, hey, here's either games you didn't expect, or here are games that you were expecting, but here's a new look at them. Here's the gameplay for
Hmm.
Battlefield, or here's Redfall, this game you're not expecting at all, stuff like that. I think that's what they did a great job was spacing, having those big splashes. We talk about Square Enix. They blew their load with Guardians. That was the first game they came out
Yep.
with, and nothing else really generated any excitement or whatever. Xbox is like, here's Starfield. And then I kept asking myself, I don't know if you saw any of my tweets. I was like, I'm watching the Xbox conference. I'm like, how are they going to end this? How are they going to end this? Because like it's just, here's Starfield and then here's Battlefield and here's some of these other big games and stuff like that. You go, oh my God, what are they
It
going to
did
do to,
end it with a bang.
yeah, how do you conclude this? How do you top this? And it's like, here's a new IP from one of the best studios around, from Arcane, and
Yeah.
here's this really cool vampire game. And it's like, wow, okay, you got me there. And Xbox, I don't care what anyone says. It was the winner. It
Oh
absolutely
yeah.
was.
I'll say second place will be Nintendo. Even though that hurts to say, it did like I give it like a B or 4 out of 5 because I think there were a lot of things, but it had some of those problems where they showed a game that they've already shown before, like Mario Golf, for such a long time, and I was like, I just want to know if Breath of the Wild 2 is even in the works still. And of course, we finally get that moment at the very end. I knew it would come at the very end. They're not going to put it out first. Um, so that was the moment I was like most hyped for. I'm not like a Smash Bros fan really, but like uh, I was like good for Smash Bros friends. Have the new character right there, first one. I thought Mario Party, like with that has like all the other old Mario Party mini games, really intrigues me because that's like a family game that I mean, we're not in quarantine so much anymore, but those are the types of games that really mattered to us back this year. And that makes me excited. But I have to say, Breath of the Wild 2, oh, I'm so excited
Yeah,
because
that's
it
something we talked
makes
about
me
last
so
time. Was like, are
happy.
they going to show us anything about Breath of the Wild 2? And of course they did. And the trailer looks gorgeous. I've only ever played like a few minutes of it. I think that was the second Legend of Zelda game I ever touched. 'Cause I'm not a big Nintendo guy, and but it looks gorgeous, and like I thought if I got a Switch, I would definitely play
Hmm.
Breath of the Wild. Like that is a type of game where I'm like, oh, you know what, Nintendo, you got my attention, you know. And I think it was a great way to end their conference was that, but also like showing the new Metroid game, like
Oh yeah,
that was the big
surprising.
that was the biggest splash that they made was like, I mean, everyone was talking about that game, and people like even in our Slack channel for KeenGamer, I saw Dakota and like some of our other colleagues being like, oh my god, Dread, and I saw someone post that, I'm like, what are they talking about? And
Yeah.
then I eventually saw the stuff on Twitter and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, this is what you mean and stuff like
And I
that. And
couldn't believe apparently the game had been in like works, quote unquote, like kind of ideas building for 15 to 16 years.
oh
And
really, I
now
didn't
they
know that.
just finally revealed it. It's like, how many more games do they have like this that we have no idea they're working on?
Yeah, and Nintendo has said like a couple of years ago that they're not gonna crunch, and that they're and
Hmm.
which means games are gonna come out a little bit later than expected. Games are gonna be in development longer because they don't want to overwork employees and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I thought that was great, but it's also like it makes sense for like these games are gonna take longer than expected.
Yeah.
That's why we're
Like
getting.
Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be what now, 6 years after the first one, which is understandable.
Yeah.
I'm fine with no crunch, actually. It makes me
Yeah,
happier.
that's awesome, and I think Nintendo's doing a great job with that. Even though their whole thing about their conference not being able to be streamed or like reacted to and stuff like that, you
Yeah.
can't like that. Their whole guidelines that was wrong. Like there's such a bad
All of E3 has to put
like
that, like, fix that.
how is Nintendo like so good at making these games and these consoles that people love, but they're so backward and they're just so they make some awful decisions. Like they'll
Yeah.
make like all the right moves. Like, hey, here's a new Metroid game. Here's a new trailer for Breath of the Wild 2 and all this stuff, and people are go so hyped. And then they're like, oh yeah, we you can't like show this though, like on your own channel and stuff like that. And it's just
Uh,
like, oh come on, like get out of here.
yeah. But I guess it was worth it in the end because everyone's still going to buy their games, and every
Yeah.
single person is talking about that reveal.
Yeah, you can make those decisions if as long as you're still putting out the quality that's gonna get people to buy your
Yeah.
games and play your games and really and have a good time. So I'll give them that, but at the same time, I've not been a biggest fan of their some of their decisions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I was very shocked on how E3 went. We still have more conferences coming. People love to do their own thing and whatnot, and
And what
then
did I see? They're doing a second Xbox conference, like on the 17th. They did this weird thing where like, oh, here's the continuation. And I was like, what?
yeah, so they're doing like an
I
extended
don't know
showcase.
exactly what.
Um,
That's pretty
especially
neat.
yeah, yeah. It's so June 17th. I have an IGN article pulled up actually from Adam Bankhurst, and so yeah, Xbox Game Showcase extended presentation take place Thursday, June 17th, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. People can figure out what their whole thing is. It's gonna Double Fine's gonna be featured, Obsidian, Ninja Theory, Rare, and more. So with that, we might be able to see Our Worlds 2, maybe
Mm-hmm.
Avowed. With Ninja Theory being there, we'll actually get Hellblade 2, which is going to be cool.
Mm-hmm.
They missed
Yep.
on E3, but now we're going to get it, a little bit later down the road. Yeah, it's going to be that's super cool actually, because I saw that, and um I think they announced that Paris Lilly, who's like really like kind of well known in the industry and has a big following on social media and stuff like that. He's gonna be there and stuff like that. He's on
Mm-hmm.
Gamertag Radio, and he appears a lot of times on Kind of Funny and stuff like that, where people probably know him. And so super cool. I'm very excited about that, especially with how well they did this conference. And they're like, hey, we're gonna do another one pretty soon, and you're gonna get to see more stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what new things they didn't show us here that they have that's going to be really substantial. Like I think definitely Rare's Everwild and Hellblade 2 are going to be big splashes, and Psychonauts 2. So I'm curious to see like what else they have outside of that, but super cool. And we're going to get more, more gaming news, and Summer Game Fest is still going and whatnot. The next one of that's going to be a little bit of ways away, but we're still going to get that, relatively soon. It'll come sooner rather than, like, as soon as we know it. Um, yeah, so super cool. I thought, despite the lows, I thought the highs overall make
Mhm.
up for it. You know, there was a lot of showcases I was just fast forwarding through, just seeing the games as quickly as possible, reading articles on
Yeah.
catching up on it. But when you got Xbox, who just crushed it, you know, I wished PlayStation was there though. I kind of miss getting PlayStation. I think that was my biggest thing. I was like, man, if only you guys came in and had some stuff to show. But they've kind of done their own thing. I think they've done well of
Yeah.
doing their own
Even if they
thing.
didn't say they were E3, like even if they said, "Oh, we're not with E3, but we're gonna do our own little like what do they call it? PlayStation, what is Sony Direct, whatever they do, a state of
Yeah,
play."
it's
That
all the same thing. Yeah,
I think that
yeah,
would be completely fine. But
yeah.
it still feels like there's a gap missing in E3, despite how I think successful it was this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And but you know, we have still plenty of stuff to talk about. You know, we'll be getting more into all these different things that are going to be coming out. You know, in the coming weeks and coming months. You know, summer's like the time of gaming news and stuff like that. And I
Oh
can't
yeah.
wait to, man. There's just so much stuff to dive into. And this year in terms of the games that are coming out, and next year, obviously delays are potential to happen. Obviously,
Mhm.
since COVID is still a thing, it's still impacting development and stuff like that. But man, if all things go well, which they really do in the industry, but if all things go well, we're going to have a fantastic rest of the year. And the beginning of next year is just going to be wild, especially if Elden Ring can really land that January date. It's just going to be
Yeah.
kicking off. I can't wait. But yeah, any
Oh,
final
they
thoughts on
said they were confident about it in interviews. So
yeah,
that's pretty
that's good.
surprising.
Good. Confidence is good. But any final
Final
thoughts
thoughts?
before we end?
Just I'm excited. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot more Game of the Year slated titles for 2022. It seems like there's like Breath of the Wild and Elden Ring and all these big titles but I still think this year we have a lot coming. And
Yeah.
there's from indies to like triple A's. There's so much coming out now that I don't think one person could not find something they're interested in.
Oh yeah. It's a great time to be a gamer for sure. And yeah, I can't wait. Regardless of the platform, it's like I have something for every platform I own. For my PlayStation, for my
Yeah.
PC. You know, whether it's Game Pass or I'm buying it off Steam and using my own money. But yeah, it's awesome. I can't wait. And but thanks, Annika. It was nice talking to E3 2 weeks in a row, you know, giving our predictions and now
Yeah.
covering it and stuff like that. And we do have some coverage and stuff like that, some articles people can find on KeenGamer if there's anything you missed on E3 and whatnot. So we got you covered there. And we'll see you guys next time. We come out every Thursday, both on podcast services and on YouTube. So we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much.